Our research project seeks to explore the impact of pregnancy on eating behaviours, body image and well-being, with the overall goal of identifying potential psychological constructs that could help during pregnancy. So just to give you a really brief overview as to what will be covered in this presentation, we'll firstly introduce you to some of the key concepts that have been explored within the research. We will then highlight some of the things that we already know. We will look at what we did in terms of our research and what our research adds. And we'll also look at some clinical implications for the research. So firstly, let me introduce to you some of the key concepts and definitions. Firstly, looking at self-compassion. Having compassion for oneself is really no different than having compassion for others. And there are three elements of self-compassion. First, self-compassion means taking a balanced, mindful approach to life's challenges. We are able to accept them without judgment, and this can prevent us from being swept away by negative thinking. Second, if you are self-compassionate, you realise that suffering, failure and imperfections are simply part of the shared human experience. And finally, you are kind to yourself when you fail, rather than being overly self-critical. Psychological flexibility refers to our ability to adapt to our thoughts and behaviours to changing situations, such as, for example, sticking to a healthy eating plan or an exercise regime through life setbacks when life gets stressful or work gets difficult. Psychological flexibility is anchored in the literature and interventions around acceptance and commitment therapy, which are aimed to facilitate behavioural change. Body image is a combination of the thoughts and feelings that you have about your body. Body image may range between positive and negative experiences, and it can change throughout the lifespan. Pregnancy is an especially interesting time to examine body image because of the physical changes that take place to the body in terms of body shape, weight and size. So when we're thinking about eating behaviours, this is more about how we eat rather than what we eat. It's about how we engage with the process of eating, and it may also relate to when or how much we eat, rather than on the food itself. Emotional eating is when we eat in response to our emotions, typically when we are experiencing low mood or in response to stress. Mindful eating might be considered positive eating. This is where we are focused and attentive to our eating, and this can help us to connect with our hunger and satiety cues that can prevent overeating. We already know that excessive weight gain is linked to poorer birth and maternity outcomes, such as preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, and an increased risk of caesarean birth with its associated surgical risks. We also know that excessive weight gain in pregnancy may also lead to longer-term weight retention and weight issues for women later in life. We also know that this is a growing issue, and therefore there are many interventions designed to tackle the problem, which I'll cover in a moment. One of the ways that we can tackle this is to target the behaviours that contribute to weight gain, such as eating behaviours, which have been found to be linked to weight gain in the general population, and this is a growing area of research in pregnancy. The teachable moment theory suggests that pregnancy might be an opportune time to change behaviours that can help prevent excessive gestational weight gain. Pregnancy has been described as a particularly powerful teachable moment to change health behaviours because women may be particularly motivated to improve their health and they have more contact with healthcare professionals. However, pregnancy may not be sufficient for all women to change behaviour, and the challenge is in identifying those for which pregnancy alone is not the main motivator for change. Pregnancy is also a very complex time when many behaviours are changing anyway, such as stopping unhealthy behaviours such as smoking or drinking alcohol, starting new behaviours such as taking folic acid and other vitamins, or continuing with what might have been already healthy behaviours. So there is already pressure on women to change or to continue with healthy behaviours. For some, their eating may not be healthy, and this may be something that may be encouraged to change during pregnancy. Some researchers also found that midwives may be reluctant to discuss weight and eating for fear of enacting weight stigma. So what we know is that interventions may decrease gestational weight gain. However, there's no clear evidence of improving pregnancy or birth outcomes, and also that interventions that work in clinical settings often fail to translate into community-based settings. It's also not clear which elements are most effective, And so the search for low-cost effective interventions continues, and health psychologists have been particularly interested in looking at various psychological constructs when considering changing health behaviours, including eating behaviours. Self-compassion and eating behaviours in pregnancy is a growing area of research, and early findings suggest that self-compassion could play a protective role in unhealthy eating behaviours during pregnancy and the postnatal period, but more research is needed. Psychological flexibility is an emerging area of research in relation to eating behaviours in pregnancy, but shows some promise. And body image is especially complex during pregnancy due to the rapid changes to the body in a relatively short space of time, and is a particularly risky time for developing body dissatisfaction for some women. And body dissatisfaction is strongly associated with unhealthy eating behaviours in pregnancy. So what did our research involved? So we used a mixed methods approach with 3 cross-sectional quantitative studies and 2 qualitative interview studies. So what did our cross-sectional research tell us about psychological well-being? Well, we found that self-compassion and psychological flexibility may provide a protective buffer for psychological well-being during pregnancy. This was the case especially for women who did not have a particularly strong connection with their unborn baby. So this may be relevant for those whose pregnancy is unplanned or unexpected, or those who have experienced a previous pregnancy loss and may be deliberately avoiding connection with their unborn baby in a subsequent pregnancy. We also found that self-compassion and psychological flexibility may protect against unhealthy eating behaviours and to increase a more mindful approach to eating in pregnancy. This was the case especially for women not on their first pregnancy or who were living with a medical condition. This means that when we have other children to take care of, or perhaps a medical condition that requires more of our attention, it is more difficult for us to focus on our eating. Finally, we found that self-compassion and psychological flexibility may protect against body image disturbances. Self-compassion may especially protect against body and weight-related shame, which is an element strongly associated with both poor psychological well-being and unhealthy eating behaviours. So this links our 3 cross-sectional studies together. Again, this was the case especially for women not on their first pregnancy or who were living with a medical condition. So now let's look at our qualitative research. And the first study, we interviewed 24 women who'd given birth within a year of the interview from a wide range of cultural backgrounds, and 5 themes were generated. Whilst behaviour change is swift for some at the onset of pregnancy, it is hard to sustain over 9 months, and women will fluctuate between healthy and less healthy behaviours. Most women also expect to eat more and to gain weight in pregnancy. There's an inevitability about gaining weight, and it's even seen as a normal part of pregnancy, and that gaining weight is a sign of a healthy baby. Women also balance the needs of having a healthy baby with their own needs, especially in relation to their own mental health. And for those living with a medical condition, the focus has to be more on their own well-being, and that healthy eating may not be a priority. In relation to body image, there's no obvious pattern as to who may struggle to accept their changing body. Even those who've gone through IVF or has a longed-for baby, they may still find this challenging. And universally, eating was worse in the postnatal period, and this may not be surprising, but it is interesting because this is the time when women may feel particular pressure to lose the baby weight, and that may be external pressure from family or wider society, or it might be a pressure that they put on themselves to get back into their pre-pregnancy clothes. Pause the recording now to read the extracts from the interviews. Our second qualitative research involved interviewing 13 NHS midwives, which included one third-year student coming towards the end of her studies. It included midwives with a range of experience from very newly qualified to over 30 years experience, and we generated 4 themes from the research. So the first theme, In lieu of any formal guidance or training, midwives had to rely on their own personal experiences to inform the information that they gave to women, and this could even be how they managed their own pregnancies. And midwives often did this sometimes to overcome their own discomfort of discussing weight. Universally, midwives also want practical and evidence-based knowledge and skills to build their confidence around healthy eating. They recognised that this was missing and even made comparisons to the extensive training they receive for smoking cessation. There was also a good awareness amongst midwives that weight issues for women are complex and start before pregnancy and extend well beyond it. Some midwives even had a good awareness of the psychological elements of eating behaviours, although the main focus was on diet, safe or unsafe foods, and the discussions midwives said that they had with women focused more on risk prevention rather than on health promotion. And the final theme, that BMI is at the centre of discussions and the main trigger for signposting to interventions about weight or healthy lifestyles in pregnancy, although there was some awareness that BMI is not a good measure of health. Pause the recording now and work through the next slides to read in your own time extracts from the interviews. So what does our research add? So our research adds to the literature in 4 key areas. So first, self-compassion and psychological flexibility could be useful targets for intervention because of their strong correlations across well-being, eating behaviours and body image. We also found that all women want and expect healthy eating advice from their midwives. So midwives need suitable subject and skills training so that they feel confident to provide this information without having to rely on their own personal experiences. And providing this information to all women may help to reduce weight stigma, and it may help women and midwives feel more comfortable discussing this topic in a helpful and meaningful way if everybody's having these conversations. And whilst BMI is here to stay and is an indicator of body size, it is not a measure of health, nor can it predict or identify accurately all women who may need additional support with eating behaviours in pregnancy. Many women could be potentially missed who could benefit from this advice. Also, singling women out simply because of their BMI is what may be contributing to weight stigma in this area, which is the reason why midwives feel uncomfortable discussing this topic with women and why women are not receiving the information that they need. Weight, eating and body image issues do not begin in pregnancy, nor do they end at birth. The postnatal period is a critical time to promote healthy behaviours, and women need support to either continue their healthy behaviours developed through pregnancy or help them begin new healthy behaviours that they can take forward into motherhood and into their next pregnancy, in the hope that they enter the next pregnancy with good habits already formed. So what next? There are 2 key recommendations for clinical practice following this research. The first is to outline some of the resources or training that NHS trusts could consider to ensure that midwives have the knowledge and the skills to provide healthy eating advice to all women. And the second is to introduce questionnaires for use during pregnancy that can assess eating behaviours, body image issues and lower levels of well-being that might identify those who could benefit most from additional support about healthy eating. So signposting to healthy eating interventions in some description. And finally, this research will be published in a PhD thesis in journals and presented at conference. And if you are interested in this research and would like to arrange for a guest lecture, perhaps for students or others who might want more value in more detail, then please do get in touch. Also, I value your feedback, whether you're a very experienced midwife who has many, many years practicing, or a newly qualified midwife or a student. I really welcome your feedback on this research. If you have watched this video from the survey link, then you can return to the survey to complete the questions or scan the QR code to be taken to the survey. There is a £5 Amazon voucher available to the first 20 participants who have watched this video and completed the survey. Please email me to claim your voucher at the email address on the next slide. The first 20 participants will receive a voucher as a thank you for completing the survey. Please ensure that you enter the code FIRST20 at the end of your survey. Please pause the recording over the next 3 slides to check any of the references from this presentation. And thank you for watching.